The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. Thanks so much for joining us. There is a lot happened yesterday that we have to cover. Let me start first with the unfortunate decision by the Supreme Court last night that is sending thousands of people in Wisconsin to be exposed to the coronavirus in order to vote. It is being pushed by it was a 5-4 decision split along ideological lines. Brett Kavanaugh, the most recent appointee by President Trump, wrote the decision and said that adding 6 more days, I believe, to the period for voting for mail-in ballots would fundamentally change the nature of the democracy of the people participating in democracy. And this couldn't be further from the truth when you consider that now there are only a limited number of locations that are open today, and that has created a bottleneck where thousands of people have to go and travel even further than they would in normal times under normal circumstances in order to participate in democracy. Only a fraction of the people who would participate are going to go out and participate, because going out to participate means they put their lives at risk. Poll workers have decided, or some rather, not all, some poll workers have decided to not participate today, which means even more locations are going to be closed. And I mean, here we are, primarily for the purposes of Donald Trump and the Supreme Court, the Republican-led Supreme Court, they do not want to create a precedent that is going to carry over to November. In other words, they are going to go forward with voting as normal in November, because they know that their participants, their voters are committed enough and believe that this is the coronavirus is a hoax enough. And they believe that they're covered by the blood of Jesus enough. If you remember yesterday's bonus episode, the woman who was coming from church yesterday or Sunday saying that she was covered by the blood of Jesus, that everything is going to be all right. And they believe that all they have to do is take some hydroxychloroquine, and Donald Trump supporters are going to go to the polls. And more than likely, we're not. I'm not. I can tell you that now. I'm not going to the polls in November. We're not going to have a solution. We're not going to have a cure for this by November. See, one of the reasons that they are delaying telling people what's really going on and how long, I mean, people have put it together for themselves, but the government itself has not come out and just told people that this is going to last for over a year. This social quarantine, this social distancing, this self-quarantining, it's going to last over a year, or at least until they have enough clinical trials so that they understand the vaccine is safe, which normally takes up to 18 months. But the government is not going to tell you that, because that means two things. That means we have to fundamentally change how this country operates, which means the government is going to and listen, let me. OK, nope. Let me stay focused. Because I want to talk about the Dow Jones going up, because the Fed has poured trillions upon trillions of dollars into the markets to make sure that the investors, the capitalist class, continue to get everything that they need to survive, to not have their wealth diminish. In fact, they're going to see their wealth exponentially grow. That's because the government fully understands the magnitude of what's going on. They are just not going to allow the magnitude of what's going on to be told in context of the people. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they understand the score very clearly. Why else would they pour trillions of dollars into the markets, and now the markets have a positive trend while people are dying? While 10 million people, I got to save that for the next segment. I don't want to blur two segments together. But this is why they are not going. They understand exactly. They understand fully the scale and the scope of what's happening around us, the fact that the world is changing around us, but they cannot have that discussion in terms of the people, because if they have that discussion in terms of working people and normal people, the labor force, the working class. Let me calm down and preserve my voice. My voice, something's going on with my voice. I'll figure out what's going on, but it's upsetting. It's upsetting because they will not allow people to socially distance, to stay home and send in mail-in ballots, because they understand if they do that now, they set the precedent for November, because they fully understand that we are going to be locked in this quarantine all the way through November. I'm not even 40 yet, but there's a possibility. I'll be 40 in June. There's a possibility we won't be able to come out until I'm 41, 18 months. I'll be 41 years old. And the government knows that. Donald Trump knows that. The Fed, the Federal Reserve, knows that. That's why they are pouring an obscene amount of money into the markets. I guess I'm going to collide both of these sections together. And all it's going to cost for them to never reveal to the people what's really going on in terms of the scale, the scope, and the length of time that we are going to be self-quarantining. In order for them to not do that, they have to sacrifice some people. Those poor people who are going to the polls. And I feel sorry for those who honestly believe okay, well, we just have to do our duty and, we'll put on our mask and we'll be safe. Ultimately, somebody who's taking all the precautions they possibly can today, who has on a mask, who has hand sanitizer, who's wearing gloves, who's doing everything they possibly can do to not get sick in order to participate in their democracy, they're going to get sick and somebody is going to die. That's just the way of the world right now. I'm not speaking it on them. I'm not hoping it for them. It's just the grim reality of how contagious and how deadly this pandemic is. And in order for the federal government, the Trump administration, I'm going to be more specific. In order for the ruling class, which is made up by both Democrats and Republicans, for them to be able to maintain a grip on power, they cannot reveal to us the extent to which the length that we're going to be in this program, in this quarantine. They can't, because then we are going to demand, the people will demand that the government, instead of pouring all of these trillions of dollars into the markets, will start pouring the money into the people so that we as a people can survive. But what does that do? That empowers the people. That puts money into hands of the people instead of putting the money directly into the hands of the ruling elite and the capitalists. What they are trying desperately to do is to hold on to the old world by any means necessary. That means sending your poor ass out to the polls to vote and to get sick. And it is not just the Republican Party. Joe Biden is trying to do the same thing by ensuring that everybody, let's just get these primaries out the way so that we can get rid of Bernie Sanders. We've known we understood what was happening at the beginning of March. We understood, but Simone Sanders, who is a representative for Joe Biden, went on television and said the CDC said that it was okay for people to go. As a matter of fact, listen to her voice.
Our democracy is extremely important. And even in times of strife in this country, we have to do our duty. So the CDC and folks have said it's safe out there for Tuesday. So I don't know what Senator Sanders was talking about, but I'll tell you, Governor DeWine said it was safe in Ohio. So I encourage people to get out there and vote on Tuesday.
Yeah. And then people died. Florida, Michigan. The outbreaks there poll workers. People had to be informed that their poll workers were infected with COVID-19 when they went to vote that day. So when I say that the ruling elite, they will do anything in their power to keep their power. They're not going to show up to the polls, but they know that they have enough dummies who are going to follow their lead and go out and do what they're told, both Republican and Democrat. Donald Trump tweeted out last night that everyone should go out and vote in Wisconsin and be safe. Being safe means staying at home, you moron. It means staying away from public places. It means following but they know this. They know this. And they also know that there will be just enough people to go and vote to help them maintain power. And if you think about it, here's the thing about it. There's two things at play here. I took a second to think. There's two things at play. Number one, they're trying to make sure that they don't set a precedent that they have to allow extended voting and mail-in ballots for the November election, because they've already conceded that that's going to be a direct threat to their power. They just very directly said that. Donald Trump said as much. They don't want to empower more people to vote because that means they will lose power. That's number one. But number two, they also have a vested interest in making sure these primaries end very, very quickly. The Democratic primaries. There's no concern about the primaries on the Republican side. Donald Trump doesn't even have any serious contenders. Nobody's really primarying him whatsoever. But they want to make sure that Joe Biden gets in there because they have a strategy, a very easy strategy of destroying Joe Biden, and the Democratic establishment is going along right with it. Why? Because the Democrats are more determined to protect their power. They're more interested in protecting their power than they are winning. They would rather lose with Joe Biden than to win with Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders represents a threat to their power. Here's the gag, though. Even when the primaries is over, there is a clear and very present threat to your power, and that is the people. The people who have lost their jobs, the 10 million people who have lost their health insurance, the millions of people who see the markets going up while people are dying, the millions of people who sees the Federal Reserve pouring trillions of dollars into the markets every single week, while everyone else is struggling to just figure out how they're going to pay their goddamn rent. You think you're going to get away? You think beating Bernie Sanders is going to protect you from the people? Especially in the face of a pandemic that is being exacerbated by the moron in chief in the White House. Especially when we can clearly see that there is no opposition to Donald Trump. There's no real opposition. Jim Clyburn from South Carolina yesterday basically saying that we're not going to look backwards. We're going to look forward. Talking about we're not going to investigate the federal response to the COVID-19. No accountability, no opposition, and as well as the president of the United States. I mean, I got a whole segment on how the president of the United States is profiting. And it's all starting today with people going to the polls in Wisconsin to vote. And I'm so sorry, some of them are going to die. That is just the unfortunate reality of this virus. There are people who are quarantined at home doing the very best they can, who picked up a piece of mail and got sick. So you think a virus that is this contagious isn't going to take out a whole group of people that are going out to these polls to vote? You are the sacrificial lambs for this government. You are the sacrificial lambs for this regime that has been in control of this government for a very, very long time. They don't care about you dying. You're just a cog in the machine. They've figured out how to profit off of your death. All they need you to do is to continue to participate. And in a minute, we'll discuss, even if you can't participate economically, financially, well, they just get the government to write them a whole bunch of checks and watch the Dow Jones soar as the people die. All right. I'll be back after this.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
And here we go. Very special welcome to our newest patrons, without whom this show is not possible. Very special welcome to Karen. Karen, thank you so much for becoming a patron. Very special thank you and welcome to Praneet. Thank you for becoming a patron. Very special thank you and welcome aboard to Chelsea Jordan. Thank you for becoming a patron. And also very special thank you to Ikram, or Ikram. I think it's Ikram. Thank you for becoming a patron. You too can become a part of this prestigious and this prodigious patron family by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get access to all of the bonus shows, which include twice the content without any of the advertisements, like I'm patiently getting ready to send you to right now. Okay. I think it's what's going on around us is infuriating, and I'm trying not to have you be angry all the time. I know it's hard to laugh right now. It really is. And I've always done my best over the last few months, not years. I've done my best to try to make the podcast enjoyable, because I can't have you out there being as angry as I am, because rage isn't necessarily always a good thing, but there's really not a lot to laugh about these days. That's the thing, man. I'm like, it's infuriating to see how the system around us is so uniquely designed to destroy us. Like, we really created a system. We legitimately created a system that will destroy us. And we seem to be oblivious to it. All of us still participating, playing our roles. Everyone's playing their role, even me with this podcast. Like, I'm trying to bring attention to it, but even in bringing attention to it, I'm playing a role facilitating it. It's like we're trapped in a system and we can't get out. Marcusa. But one of the things that is the most glaring is the fact that we have poured enough money into the markets so that what was a precipitous decline that was really to be expected, right? It's there. It should be expected that the markets would crash as 10 million people lost their jobs. Chicken or the egg, it's irrelevant, right? It should be expected that the market would crash when people can't go out and consume. It would be expected that the markets would crash when the labor force can't go out and generate wealth for the capitalist class. It would be expected. Sorry, I don't have much to laugh about these days. Maybe we'll get our laughter and our joy back at another point. But right now, it should be expected that the markets would crash as tens of thousands of Americans die. Right? You would think that we would all be suffering together. But that's not the case. The Dow Jones opened up pretty strong this morning, and so far today, it is up. Where is it? It's up 449 points, up 1.98%. Yesterday it closed, I believe it was up 1,600 points yesterday. Some obscene. I mean, the markets are soaring while people are losing their jobs, while people are dying. Billionaires are getting wealthier. They took a little hit last week or 2 weeks ago, but the Fed said, no, we can't possibly tolerate the capitalists in this country suffering and losing their wealth. There's no way we could. So what do? Two things. The Fed was right there immediately pouring trillions of dollars into it. All of a sudden we found trillions of dollars. They just made the money. They literally just printed the money and gave these dollars out to banks to shore up the markets. And then we passed the legislation that bailed out industry after industry after industry. And what is literally happening right now, I think you don't understand. What's literally happening right now is that these businesses are not really functioning. They're just sitting there profiting. They're not functioning because people are not coming to consume. People are not traveling. People are not flying. But that's okay. We don't actually even need your participation in this economy anymore. All we need is the government to write us checks. Kind of sounds like socialism. Except they would never under any circumstances allow the government to write checks to the people. If they just wrote the checks to the people, what would happen? People would consume and the rich would get rich anyway. But that's not good enough. It's not good enough for the government to give us the cash and then we give the cash to the corporations because we need to consume. No, they want to skip us as the middlemen. They see all of these hundreds of millions of people in this country who are suffering as middlemen, and they could just get the check directly from the government. That's literally what's happening. Do you think airlines are flying and making a profit? No, the airlines have received a bailout and they are just sitting on the cash in their banks. They're literally profiting off of our suffering at this point. I mean, I guess you could argue they've been doing that shit for a while. I'm sorry. That's all the that's all the humor I have right now. I don't have a lot to laugh about these days. I mean, I know the saying is you got to laugh or not cry, but I think I've chosen the alternate route, which is like burn. Anyway. So yeah, the Dow Jones is soaring as people are dying, as people are losing their jobs, as people are losing their health insurance, and nobody. It's like we just moved on. The media is complicit. The media is so complicit. You know what we have to do? We have to do in this moment, and I know it's a long shot, but stranger things have happened. I mean, I've shown stranger things have happened. You could take an independent voice and actually change the national conversation. It doesn't happen often. It's kind of rare, but we have to make it happen even more often. We have to give a media challenge to this system because they are doing everything in their power. They don't care how much the people suffer. They literally don't care how many people are going to die. The president of the United States is peddling snake oil. People are going to die because of his decisions. And now we find out he has investments in the company that actually creates the product that he's peddling from the White House. These people don't care about you at all. People are dying, and they don't mind sacrificing us on the altar of capitalism in order to protect capitalism. A very specific type of capitalism, because they literally, if they put the money in the hands of the people, it's not like we're not going to go out and consume and make these bastards rich anyway. That's not good enough. They can never allow the people to be empowered and realize how much power we have. That's what they're trying to prevent more than anything else.
What do you think about the drug that is used normally to treat malaria?
Well, thank you for the question, Dana. It's sad to me that people are promoting that drug. We know already from studies, at best, it will have a very mild effect, at very best. There are studies that conflict a little bit, one from the other. One concludes it has no effect. The other concludes it has a mild effect. The net result is, whatever effect it has, it will be very mild. That drug has been used for years against many other viruses to no effect. The thing that makes me sad about that story is some people may take it who are on other medications, who are other underlying conditions, and may have very serious, even life-threatening consequences. It is not something to take unless a doctor prescribes it.
But that hasn't stopped the president of the United States from recommending the drug, from saying that he would take it himself, from pushing it, from peddling it. The New York Times reported last night that Donald Trump actually has, well, he has some investments in it, and that's to be expected. Like everyone said, follow the money, and that's exactly what the New York Times did. The New York Times, this is from Forbes.com. The New York Times reported Monday night that President Trump has a small personal financial interest in Sanofi, a French drug maker that produces a brand name version of hydroxychloroquine, a medication touted by Trump as a coronavirus treatment, of which the effectiveness has not been proven. Sanofi produces Plaquenil. Yeah, I have no idea why the hell I started to try read these words without reading it first and preparing the phonetic spelling, but I digress. Sanofi produces Plaquenil, the brand name form of hydroxychloroquine, according to the New York Times. The drug is typically used to treat rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and malaria. Trump's three family trusts have investments in a Dodge & Cox mutual fund with Sanofi as the largest holding, according to the New York Times. Billionaire Ken Fisher, a major Republican donor, including a donor to Trump, is one of Sanofi's largest shareholders, while Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross used to run a fund that invested in Sanofi. So there you have it. It's like a straight line. Here's the problem. We know this information, and there's nothing that we can do about it because we don't have an opposition party. nor do we don't have an opposition party that is strong enough to impeach the president again. The president of the United States is profiting off of peddling snake oil. He's exacerbating the situation. He is creating a situation where everyone is desperate in this country, where thousands of people, 10,000 people have died already. And we're expected to have upwards of 250,000 to 2 million people die. And this is because of the very specific decisions that the federal government made. There was no reason for us to have to suffer so many deaths, but we are. And so the federal government, being led by Donald Trump and the Republican administration, they have made decisions that will undoubtedly exacerbate the situation, creating conditions of panic, creating conditions of desperation where people will do whatever the president says, at least his supporters. This is directly going to affect his bottom line. And I know some people are like, well, it's a small portion of his portfolio. Yes, but it's a huge portion of this billionaire Ken Fisher. Like, he owns a major share in this company. And we all know Donald Trump is loyal to his friends. So don't think for once. I mean, anyone who dismisses this, they are engaging in bad faith, and they have no intent. They have no intention of looking at this reasonably. And it's a shame that we have to take the time to really, it should be clear. Let me say it very directly. It should be clear to everyone involved that the president of the United States is running a scam on us. He is exacerbating the conditions that are going to make people desperate enough to try this medication that right now does more harm than good. They're touting it as a miracle drug. I remember, if you remember the movie Contagion, I watched it when it came out at a drive-in theater years ago, about 2011, 2012. And I watched it again at the beginning of this pandemic. And what I remember the most about it, before I even watched it again, what I always remembered since 2011 about that movie was the fact that there was a guy on that movie who was a quote unquote blogger, right? They were trying to, at the time, being a blogger was considered an insult. And so they made the blogger the bad guy in the movie because he was willing to tout a miracle drug that wasn't really anything, that didn't do anything. He lied and he cheated his way into some fortune, to a huge following of people who supported him, even though what he was telling them was a lie. That always stuck with me because I always figured there would be people like that in the case of any crisis. There will always be con men who are sitting there. Side note, there's some progressive con men, a lot of progressive con men and women. That's all I've got to say about that. But I always knew that there would be con men who would take advantage of this. What we did not expect in 2011, that it wouldn't be bloggers who would be taking advantage of this and trying to capitalize on it by promoting a fake drug, or not a fake drug, but a drug that is not proven to have any positive effects and has side effects that are far more detrimental. It's the president of the goddamn United States of America who's doing it. And it's us measly bloggers and podcasters who are trying to sound the alarm in a way that the motherfucking establishment is not, that the Democrats are not, that the media is not. The media, the Democrats, the people with platforms, the people with power, they are not bringing their full resources to bear to protect the people from the president of the United States of America. It's us measly independent media, folks. That movie that was about the only thing wrong in that movie. Everything else in Pandemic was like fucking spot on. It's everything that's happening now is literally what was happening and predicted in that movie, except the fact that it isn't the bloggers and the podcasters who are taking advantage of this. It's the goddamn establishment. It's the president of the United States of America. And what can we do about it when we have no opposition party? What can we do about it when the Democrats, who should be using every political tool at their disposal to protect the people from the president of the United States, but instead they're doing nothing? They're not even helping us in our dark. I mean, if it wasn't for Bernie Sanders, we probably would have only gotten a $1,200 check and not $600 more per person who's lost their jobs for unemployment insurance. This is where we are. We're in a system. We're stuck in a system. We're stuck in a democracy that does not have the ability to self-correct. The fact that the president of the United States is literally going to get millions of people killed and profit off of it. We should have tools, institutional tools at our disposal to remove this man from office immediately. Do you think that the UK would not call a snap election, a vote of no confidence, and then a snap election if the prime minister was doing what the president of the United States is doing? We have imbued the office of the presidency with entirely too much power. And we always thought, or they always thought and considered that they would always put someone in power who would be benevolent enough not to kill the people and profit off of it. But no, everything that they had to do to protect their institutions inevitably led to Donald Trump. Everything led to Donald Trump. It was always leading to Donald Trump. And now we have a man in power who's literally going to get hold on. Let me stop. I was getting ready to say tens of millions. No, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. Slow down, Ben. He's going to get tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, and God forbid, even 1 million. He's going to get that many people killed because of literally because of his decisions, because of his behaviors, because there's not a single spine in the White House that will stand up to the president of the United States. There's no institution that has the backbone or the desire. They neither have the will. They either do not have the will nor the capacity to protect the people. There's a concept that we've used as Americans in international law that says that if a nation does not have the ability or the will to stop the non-state actors within their borders, talking about terrorism, if a country does not have the ability to stop terrorism or the will to stop that terrorism, the United States has set a precedent that we will go in and do it ourselves. Right now, we have institutions that neither have the will nor the power. They either do not have the will or the power to protect us from the president of the United States. And who's going to save us? Who's going to save us? It's got to be us. We have to save ourselves. Listen, people are joking about what life's going to be like post-corona. Let me tell you something. We cannot afford to maintain this system the way it is. The Constitution has given us the ability to amend the Constitution. And we are in a situation now where our institutions have failed us so miserably. It is an abysmal failure. We are in a position now where we literally are dying because of our institutions, because the Supreme Court is just complicit with this president. Because the Senate is complicit with this president. Oh, you think I'm going to leave out Democrats? Because the Democratic Party is complicit with this president by not doing everything they possibly can. They should be throwing their lives on the line to protect the people. What else is your power worth? What are you there for? What the hell are you there for if you're not even going to try to save lives? Our institutions have failed us. The presidency has failed us. The Congress has failed us. The House of Representatives has failed us. The Senate has failed us. The Supreme Court has failed us. And we've been left out here to die while the Dow soars. The next voice you're going to hear is that of B-lister, C-lister, probably Z-lister actress Alyssa Milano, as she makes excuses for Joe Biden's sexual allegations, the sexual assault allegations against him. Listen to her on that dude who covers the Real Housewives. He always does the reunions. I can't think of his name. I'll get his name after this. Listen to this interview, though.
Okay, good.
And there have been accusations against Joe about a sexual assault.
Right, and people were saying, "How can you do that?" Because you're.
I have not publicly said anything about this. If you remember, it kind of took me a long time to publicly say anything about Harvey as well.
Okay.
Because I believe that even though we should believe women, and that is an important thing, and what that statement really means is, like, you know, for so long the go-to has been not to believe them. So really we have to sort of societally change that mindset to believing women, but that does not mean at the expense of not giving men their due process and investigating situations.
I like that.
And giving, it's got to be fair in both directions.
Okay.
So, I've been very vocal about Biden and my support for him. I've known him for a long time, and I did do my due diligence because part of it was that, and the article that sort of stood out to me was that Time's Up decided not to take the case. And so,
that was important to you. That meant, well, maybe there's more to this story here.
Right. I did my work, and I spoke to Time's Up, and I just don't feel comfortable throwing away a decent man that I've known for 15 years.
What?
Yep.
In this time of complete chaos without there being a thorough investigation.
Yep.
I'm sure that mainstream media would be jumping all over this.
Yeah, okay, that's enough. I gave you as much context as you need for someone to not say, "Oh, Ben Dixon just clipped that to make her." She is an awful human being. She has been willing. She's there, literally using every excuse that people who have been abusers and people who make excuse for abusers and rapists have used for centuries. She literally wrote out all of the excuses that conservatives levied at her in order to protect Brett Kavanaugh from Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. I don't want to get her name wrong. Hang on, because I know it's Dr. Ford. Christine Blasey. Yeah, bless you, Sister Ford. She literally just rolled out all of the excuses that conservatives used. And the thing is that Tara Reid, the young woman who has come out with her story about how Joe Biden sexually assaulted her about 20 years ago when she was in her 20s and she was not a campaign staffer, she was an aide. She told people about it at the time. And there are people who can confirm that they were told about this at the time it happened, which is more than what Dr. Ford actually had. So we took Dr. Ford, and I believe Dr. Ford. I honestly do. 100%. But we took her word, but now Alyssa Milano, I know it's Milano, I'm just being stupid. She's like, no, we want to give him due process. Since when has Me Too, she has been willing to sacrifice an entire movement in order to protect someone who she likes politically. And then what was the guy's name? I had it. I don't want to have to stop and rewind just to find this fool's name. What's this? Let me just do a quick Google search if you don't mind. Real Housewives Housewives reunion host, Andy Cohen. He's acting like he's never heard of due process before. Oh, that's good. That's great. Wow. Really? I mean, I guess I shouldn't expect anything more from someone whose career is based on dramatics. But this is where we are. My homegirl, Rebecca Azor, she used to give me hell back in when we were hosting Like It or Not with Content News. Because, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I stay away from the Me Too conversation other than to support it. For no other reason than I've never been sexually assaulted. Let me think. I've had some pretty aggressive women, and I guess I have to really reconsider that statement. But that's besides the point. The point is, the point. I actually had one woman slap the taste out of my mouth because I wouldn't sleep with her. I never forget that. But that's completely besides the point. The point is that I did not feel like it was my role to evaluate the sincerity of the Me Too movement or the women that they were promoting. I just simply thought, and I still believe, that there is a tremendous value add in flipping the dynamics of our society where we believe women. That doesn't mean that someone goes to jail until they have their due process. Harvey Weinstein got all the due process he would ever need. But what it means is, in the court of public opinion, as these men, oh my goodness, it just came back to me like the way Joe Biden, don't get me wrong, I've never really forgot it, but in the context of this conversation, it just dawned on me that Joe Biden is the quintessential person who has treated women with the level of skepticism vis-a-vis Anita Hill. Willing to destroy a woman's life in order to protect powerful men who can't control their penis. Our society has always put the onus and the burden on women I don't have to tell you this. Most of you understand this. And so that was the reason why I felt like, okay, I think it is it's culturally necessary, because there have been too many men who have been able to get away with this type of thing simply because we did not believe women. Or even if we believed them, we would attack them in order to protect powerful men. Men did it and women did it. They protected powerful men by undermining the testimony of women in the court of public opinion, which ultimately meant that none of these people ever faced any court. You do realize that prosecution in most cases for powerful men is a political issue. It's not an issue of right or wrong or evidence. It's really an issue. Is there enough political will to go after powerful men? And so the court of public opinion has always been important when it comes to going after powerful men. And so for me, it was a worthwhile movement. And so I used to sit back and be like, let's listen to the women. I think it's a good thing. Blah, 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 blah. Rebecca Azor came from a totally different perspective. She was like, I don't trust these hoes. Really? In between takes. She never said it on air, but she used to always say, like, I do not trust these women. And she wasn't talking about the women who came forward. She was talking about the women who were promoting the hashtag Me Too movement. Ultimately, she was talking about women like Alyssa Milano, who now, when it has become politically inexpedient, she has thrown the entire movement on the altar of Joe Biden, a man, ironically enough, who's going to pretty much need to be replaced at the convention because he doesn't have enough working digits to make it all the way through this campaign. So she sacrificed the Me Too movement for temporary political expediency, which is a blight, which is a mark, which is a bruise on the journey that this country was taking, shifting shifting the way this country defaults to protecting powerful men, to protecting women from powerful men. And all of that has been thrown away for raggedy old Joe Biden. God damn, shame on you. That's it for this segment of the show. Patrons, stay tuned after this new music. The party keeps going. Everybody else, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.